There's an audible voltage detector and more. Lightkeeper Pro and LED Keeper, available in stores now.
I'm Alex Trebek, here to tell you about the Colonial Penn program. If you're age 50 to 85 and looking to buy life insurance on a fixed budget, remember the 3 Ps.
What are the 3 Ps?
The 3 Ps of life insurance on a fixed budget are price, price, and price. A price you can afford, a price that can't increase, and a price that fits your budget.
I'm 65 and take medications. What's my price?
You can get coverage for $9.95 a month.
I just turned 80. What's my price?
$9.95 a month for you too. If you're age 50 to 85, call now about the #1 most popular whole life insurance plan, available through the Colonial Penn program. It has an affordable rate starting at $9.95 a month. No medical exam, no health questions. Your acceptance is guaranteed. And this plan has a guaranteed lifetime rate lock, so your rate can never go up for any reason. And with this plan, you can pick your payment date, so you can time your premium due date to work with your budget. So call now for free information. And you'll also get this free beneficiary planner, and it's yours just for calling. So call now.
Call 1-800-775-7230 for your free information and your free gift. That number again is 1-800-775-7230. Call now.
I'm really into this car, but how do I know if I'm getting a good deal? I tell TrueCar my zip and which car I want, and TrueCar shows the range of prices people in my area actually paid for the same car, so I know if I'm getting a great price. This is how car buying was always meant to be. This is TrueCar.
George woke up in pain, but he has plans today. So he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just 1 pill. Aleve. All day strong.
Recover from Thanksgiving at the Living Spaces Black Friday Doorbuster event. Today only, shop over 100 doorbusters, from sofas starting at $195 to sectionals starting at $295. With dining sets at $195 and queen beds at $95, you'll save even more. And find a huge selection of home decor starting at $5. Plus, pay no interest until 2022 on select purchases with your good credit. Only while supplies last at the Living Spaces Black Friday Doorbuster event. Living Spaces.
If you've been in a car accident, you probably have some questions. Who will pay my medical bills? What about my lost wages? Will I receive compensation? Do I need a lawyer?
Call the Barnes firm now to get the answers and the help you need.
Call 1-800-800-0000. Injured? Call the Barnes firm now.
President Trump is yet again warning there could be a government shutdown if Congress refuses to devote money to his signature campaign promise, that big, beautiful border wall. He made the remarks yesterday at his resort in Palm Beach while speaking to reporters following phone calls with military commanders, which were interesting in themselves if you want to go out and look at them. He also refused to rule out a shutdown if Congress doesn't agree to significant backing for border security as part of any deal to fund the government, a deal lawmakers have just weeks to reach.
Shut down the wall in December?
Could happen, yeah, over border security. The wall is just a part of border security, a very important part, probably the most important part. But could there be a shutdown? There certainly could, and it will be about border security, of which the wall is a part.
Joining me, the co-founder of Foundry Strategies and Republican strategist Rick Tyler, who's also an MSNBC political analyst, and MoveOn.org senior advisor Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine, is the president going to get his wall, or is he going to get a government shutdown, or will he get neither?
Katie, the wall, the beautiful wall. So look, the president, as you know, has the House, has the Senate, and clearly the White House, and they want to shut down the government over a wall. And let's not forget that he promised the American people that Mexico would pay for. The wall is, you know, it's not even policy. It's just hateful rhetoric. It's not going to work. And now on the, you know, his last-ditch effort, when the House is now going to go Democratic, he wants to double down on this hateful rhetoric. And this is what Donald Trump does. Anytime he feels like his back is to the wall, he doubles down on immigration. We saw that with the caravan, which he lied about. It's not true, as we all know now. And he sent down, unfortunately, 5,000 troops to the border, away from their family, away from Thanksgiving. Many of them serving tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, multiple tours. And this is all about politics for him. This is all about red meat to his base that he continues to do over and over again. And immigration is the thing that is the big main issue for him, for his base, that he throws out all the time.
Rick, he had his chance to get his border wall. I guess it feels like a year ago now. At one point, Chuck Schumer even said that he would give him the funding for the border wall in exchange for protections for DACA. That didn't happen. He had control of the House and the Senate. The border wall still didn't happen. What's the likelihood that it happens going forward with the Democrats not controlling the House?
Nil, almost zero. Look, remember, since the Congressional Budget Act of 1974, there have been 18 shutdowns, and the whole leverage of a shutdown, theoretically, is who's going to get blamed for it. And here Trump is announcing a shutdown, taking away any leverage he might have. I mean, when you announce that you're going to have a shutdown, it seems to me you would be blamed for it. The second is that the Democrats have a mandate coming out of the 2018 midterm elections. They won control of the House. By large numbers. They had, then you can go up and down to all the other races, hundreds of state legislative races, 7 governorships. So it seems as though the American people wanted change away from Donald Trump's policies. So that would be another reason why, if there were a shutdown, and I doubt there would be, that they would get blamed. And third and finally is that Republicans tend to get blamed for government shutdown just because the perception of Republicans has always been that they're somewhat anti-government. I would disagree with that. They've been limited government, but the Democrats are more pro-government, and they have no reason or leverage to shutting down the government. So I don't see in the end how Trump is at all going to benefit from either announcing there's going to be a shutdown or if there even was going to be one.
Well, it makes you wonder why he's announcing it in the first place. Here's listen to Kristen Welker talking to Congressman Peter King from Long Island earlier today about this.
I strongly support funding the border wall. I don't believe we should shut the government down. To me, that's an abdication of responsibility. I've opposed it in the past when it was done by Republicans, when it was done by Democrats. To me, we have an obligation to keep the government going.
So that's a Republican he'd need on his side who wouldn't do this. Karine, so why is the president bringing this up? Why does he keep beating this drum?
Because it's a drum that seems to work with his base. This is what they want. This is what, that's what's got him into the White House. Let's not forget the first thing that he did when he came down that escalator. He talked about Mexicans being drug dealers and rapists, and he continued with that awful rhetoric throughout his campaign and into the White House. I mean, this is what he does. Just like you were talking about, Katie, over a year ago, he unilaterally repealed DACA, and he asked for a big, beautiful bill of love. And to their credit, both Republicans and Democrats came together on the Senate and offered him a bipartisan bill that talked about DACA and immigration as a whole, and gave him his awful billions of dollars for his wall. But he rejected it. He blew it up. So it's never been about policy. It's been about rhetoric for him. And this is what he does when he feels like the news. He wants to control the news cycle, or he wants to make sure that what he wants out there is taking control of that news cycle. He does this. He throws immigration. We see it over and over again with family separation. We saw it then as well. And now we hear about transgender, the transgender legislation, or what's going on in the courts now. So it's all awful, and this is what he does.
Rick, finally, is this also why the president is talking about an invasion on the southern border and sending troops down there, and saying he wants to authorize legal force for a caravan that's mostly coming with people who are seeking asylum and who might be throwing rocks at the very worst at patrol officers?
Look, all that is fake news. I think he mentioned yesterday there was 500 criminals in the caravan. How would he know this? He just made up the number. But the other thing, Katie, about a government shutdown is they actually don't work anymore. I mean, the problem is that most people don't notice. You notice in and around the Beltway because people don't go to work, but they ultimately seem to get paid, so there's no threat in a government shutdown anymore. But most people, you have to make a spectacle out of them in order for them to make big news. And for instance, when they tried to shut down the World War II memorial, it's an open-air memorial, they actually had to hire people to shut it down. That was a big spectacle, it was a big backfire, so they just don't work.
Rick Tyler, speaking truth to power. Rick, thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Pierre, thank you as well. And up next, MISSISSIPPI, the last midterm, right after the break.
You're headed down the highway when the guy slams on his brakes out of nowhere. You do too, but not in time. Hey, no big deal. You got a good record, and Liberty Mutual won't hold a grudge by raising your rates over one mistake. You hear that, Karen? Liberty Mutual doesn't hold grudges. How mature of them.
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise their rates because of their first accident. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hello. Hello is friendly. Hello is open. It's welcoming. Everything we want to be when helping people find a Medicare plan. So if you're looking for yours, say hello to Hello Medicare, a new one-stop shop for Medicare plans, including Medicare Advantage and Part D prescription drugs, all from the names you know. Learn, compare, even enroll, all in one place. No matter where you are in your search, whether you're just starting out or already have a good idea of what you want, visit us online. See how we've made choosing a Medicare plan easier. Or call us now. Our Hello Medicare agents are ready to help guide you to a plan that fits your needs. Because we get it. Finding the right Medicare plan can be challenging. Plans can differ by price or benefits. They can even differ by where you live. That's why we're here, to put it all together and be your go-to place for all the latest information laid out right in front of you, in a way that's easy to understand. It all starts with a few simple questions, so we can get to know you better. Questions like, do you want to keep your doctor? And which benefits are important to you? Then, based on your answers, we'll match you with plans from the top names in Medicare, giving you a complete picture of your best options. Next, compare benefits. Compare costs. It's easy. And when you feel good about your selection, enroll with a click. Done and done. The annual enrollment period is here, and it ends on December 7th. So whether you're looking to save money or find better coverage, let's do this. Let's go find your Medicare plan. Visit us at HelloMyPlan.com today, or call and speak with one of our helpful Hello Medicare agents. Hello Medicare. Say hello to an easier way to do Medicare.
Brett Favre, legendary quarterback. Jerry Rice, legendary wide receiver. When legends play, they wear Copperfit Advanced Back Pro. Copperfit's best-selling compression back support just got better with new double-band adjustable supports for customizable compression when you need it most.
That's what I'm talking about.
4 built-in stabilizing supports designed to improve posture and help reduce lower back stress and strain.
You have back pain, and it's affecting your everyday life. Do something.
Since I put this on, I feel so much better. The core is the most important thing. To know that I'm stabilized here. Whatever I'm doing, I can give it 100%.
Call 1-800-345-1435 or on the web at advancedbackpro.com for only $19.99.
This does feel good. That's what I've been saying. You think it was fair?
It was fun.
Copperfit, live limitless.
It is the day after Thanksgiving, and the midterm elections are still not over. Yeah, really. This time, the eyes of the country are on Mississippi, where a number of racially charged statements by incumbent Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith have turned a slam-dunk victory for Republicans into a narrow race. When have you heard something like this before? In a new out today, her opponent, Democrat Mike Espy, is trying to frame Hyde-Smith's comments as backwards and embarrassing for the state.
How embarrassing is Cindy Hyde-Smith? Walmart said Hyde-Smith's recent comments clearly do not reflect the values of our company. Now AT&T, Union Pacific, and other Fortune 500 companies, company after company, has rejected her divisive words. We've worked hard to overcome the stereotypes that hurt our economy and cost us jobs. Her words should not reflect Mississippi's values either. Cindy Hyde-Smith, so embarrassing, she'd be a disaster for Mississippi.
I'm Mike Espy, and I approve this message.
But can a Democrat win in deep red Mississippi in 2018? Joining us from that very state, NBC News political reporter Hilliard and Washington Post political reporter Matt Visor. Vaughn, first to you. What are you hearing down there on the ground? Is that ad by Mike Espy something that's resonating with voters, or does Hyde-Smith still enjoy a solid group of supporters?
Katie, Donald Trump won here 2 years ago by 18 percentage points. So the question is, how many Republicans actually defect from Cindy Hyde-Smith or don't show up at all? I want to play you a little bit of sound here from one of the workers over at Pit and Pint Barbecue here in Jackson. He said that James White, he sometimes votes, and actually on November 6th, he did not show up to vote. He doesn't always prioritize voting, but on November 8th, on I guess this next Tuesday, he said he will be going to the polls and voting for Mike Espy. This is why what he told us.
I don't think she's a proper public figure to have, especially making comments about hanging. We don't need that in Mississippi. Like, we ought to get a bad rap as it is. And I think from what I heard from other people, Espy might be a better shot to, like, I don't know, get Mississippi out there to, like, we're wanting to move forward.
Now, Katie, when you compare that here, essentially this is the tough part of covering this race, right? You talk about the African-American electorate makes up about 1/3 of the voting electorate here across Mississippi, and so Mike Espy, the Democrat, must pull off a good portion of that white vote here in the state in order to pull off a victory on Tuesday. In the issue of Cindy Hyde-Smith's comments, when talking with folks in the African-American community, why that impacted, you know, I was talking with you the other day, Katie, about this town, Glendora, Mississippi. This is up in the Delta region. It's a all-black community where Emmett Till was killed back in 1955. And I was talking with the former mayor there who grew up under the Jim Crow era. Also Mike Espy. Mike Espy grew up, he went to high school in an integrated school where he was one of just 17 black students in a school of more than 800. For Cindy Hyde-Smith, when you talk to African-American voters here, they tell you, well, she may have had no ill intent with her comments. At the same time, it's still very raw because the racism of generations past and even today, those impacts are still being seen in communities like Lenora or even here in Jackson, the big urban core of Mississippi, from healthcare to education. And as that ad from Mike Espy put out there, a lot of Mississippi voters, including those white Republican voters, they said that they want to change the stereotypes that Mississippi has long held. The question is, how many of those individuals that consider themselves conservative Republicans, who stand for principles like pro-life, how many of them are willing to go vote for a Democrat on Tuesday?
I think Democrats want to see this as another Alabama with Doug Jones versus Roy Moore. It's unclear if Cindy Hyde-Smith is as toxic as Roy Moore became in the final days of that election, that special election. Matt Visor, you wrote a really interesting article today about Cindy Hyde-Smith and her history, and saying that these racially charged comments are really not the first time she's done this. She's got a long history supporting the Confederate flag, supporting Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so she has had a long history. In 2001, her second year as a state senator, she sponsored legislation to rename a portion of the highway in her district after Jefferson Davis. And she's gone to the Jefferson Davis Museum and posed for photos there. She does have a long history of supporting the Confederacy, as much of the state. That is part of the culture. But this election really comes down to a test of the Old South, where there is pride for the Confederacy, Confederate monuments. The Confederate emblem is still on the Mississippi state flag. Against the New South, which has seen toppling of Confederate monuments and, you know, sort of a greater understanding. So that's kind of what this election is about in many ways.
Yeah, and in 2014, when she was wearing that Confederate hat and talking about telling folks to visit the homestead for Jefferson Davis, she said Mississippi history at its best. I mean, you might have a deep respect for your history, but to say Mississippi history at its best when talking about the Confederacy and talking about somebody who was trying to keep the old order in place and slavery in place, I mean, it's gotta rub a lot of folks the wrong way down there.
Yeah, and I think that the way that she has handled the comments about you know, a public hanging, being willing to sit on the front row of a public hanging, the comments themselves sort of struck people, and then her reaction to it, where she did not really offer a full-throated apology. In the debate, she just said she apologizes to anyone who may have been offended by that.
Which, as everyone knows, is not an actual apology. If your husband says, "I'm sorry if I offended you," you're not going to accept that as an apology from him.
Right, and so I think that is a signal to some on the fringes to still support her, which has kind of been a little bit of her strategy. Remember, in the election, Chris McDaniel, who's far to the right of her, she's trying to win over his supporters, get his supporters to vote for her on Tuesday, which has been a lot of her strategy.
Matt Visor, thank you very much. And Vaughn Hilliard, you've been doing great work down there. The midterms end for you next week, we promise. Vaughn, thanks. And up next, Putin on the G.
It's time to do more of what you want, where you want, with the all-new EU 2200i generators from Honda. They're quiet, portable, and now packed with 200 more watts of stable power and all new features. And with easy starts and simple operation, you'll get to the good times even quicker. With outstanding fuel efficiency and the same reliability you expect from Honda, it's power you can trust.
Grubhub is an app that lets you choose a restaurant, find food, and place your order. That's it. Then food will arrive at your front door. Get $10 off your first order with code 10OFF. Grubhub. Restaurants you love, delivered.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
I've never slept better in my life. What's better than a great night's sleep?
Sleep is one of the most important things for your health, and I've always said that MyPillow is one of the most important things to your sleep. And now a recent clinical sleep study proved it. It proved you get less sleep interruptions on MyPillow. It increases your restorative deep sleep. It helps reduce your snoring, and it improves the oxygen levels to help you wake up feeling refreshed. And there's so much more.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night, and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
MyPillow changed my life because it gave me a restful night's sleep, one that I had not had before.
Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use this promo code and Mike will give you a second MyPillow absolutely free. Hurry, this offer ends soon.
MyPillow works because my patented fill adjusts your exact individual needs, and it helps keep your neck supported and aligned.
So it comes as no surprise that the same research study also showed that a full 78% of sleep study participants showed improvement in their sleep. Every MyPillow is made in the USA. It's machine washable and dryable, comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. So if you want to fall asleep fast, get deep restorative sleep, have less snoring interruptions, and wake up feeling more refreshed, don't wait another minute. Order your very own MyPillow now.
I personally guarantee that MyPillow will be the most comfortable pillow you'll ever own, or your money back.
Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use this promo code and Mike will give you a second MyPillow absolutely free. That's right, 2 MyPillows for the price of 1. Hurry, this offer ends soon.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Everyone's talking about Widows.
In or out?
Time magazine declares it's ridiculously entertaining. And Rolling Stone braves Widows is a powerhouse thriller. And one hell of a ride.
That's tough.
Widows, rated R.
Okay there, Kurt?
We're about to move.
Karate helps relieve some of the house buying stress.
At least you don't have to worry about homeowners insurance. Call Geico.
Geico? Helps with homeowners insurance?
Been doing it for years.
I'm calling Geico right now.
Good idea.
Get to know Geico and see how easy homeowners and renters insurance can be.
I take it as my job not just to ask the tough questions, but to get the answers.
More Americans watch NBC News than any other news organization in the world.
He says he's been preparing his whole life for this. Really? President Trump meets with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Argentina next week at the G20.
I'm very prepared. I've been preparing for it all my life. You know, it's not like, oh, gee, I'm going to sit down and study. I know every ingredient. I know every stat. I know it better than anybody knows it. And my gut has always been right. And we're doing very well. And I will tell you, China very much wants to make a deal.
Does he know all the ingredients to a pumpkin pie, though? That's a big question. While he's also at the G20, which, again, he's been preparing his whole life for, he's expected to meet with Russia's Vladimir Putin and possibly Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Wonder what they'll talk about. Joining me, former National Security Council Senior Director and spokesperson Ned Price, who's also an MSNBC National Security Analyst. Ned, it is ridiculous to say I've been preparing my whole life for a meeting. He said that for the debates. He says it all the time. It's the kind of thing you say as a joke to your friend when they say, are you ready to, I don't know, go to the movies? And you say, of course I'm ready. I've been preparing my whole life. It's so dumb. What is he talking about?
Well, it absolutely is, Katie. Unfortunately, however, this is no joke. You may recall that just before President Trump met with Kim Jong-un of North Korea in June of this year, he said the same thing. I don't need to prepare. I've been preparing my whole life. And just look how that went. Not only has North Korea failed to make any demonstrable steps towards that goal of complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization, we've actually learned about advancements to their program and aspects to their ballistic missile and nuclear programs we didn't know before. So this does not bode well for how President Trump will handle the most consequential bilateral relationship we have, and that is our relationship with Beijing when he meets with Xi next in the coming weeks.
What is at stake with Xi?
Well, so what is at stake with Xi is a trade war, and a potentially devastating trade war. On January 1st, tariffs on more than $200 billion worth of Chinese goods are set to increase. If that happens, American consumers and suppliers in this country are set to bear the burden of that. It's not only our economy, it's not only the Chinese economy, but if this trade war escalates even further, there could be shockwaves across the global economy. And frankly, as we see these market movements over the past few days, that is pretty much the last thing that we need, Katie, for our financial stability.
The other two folks he might be meeting with, Putin and MBS. MBS, who are CIA, it has been reported, has concluded murdered Jamal Khashoggi, the American resident working for the Washington Post. What might happen with those two meetings?
Well, it's notable that he's, speaking of meeting with these three individuals, you don't hear a lot of Democratic liberal with a small L leaders included in that bunch. I think if he does meet with Mohammed bin Salman, it will have to be an opportunity to really hammer home what he has failed to do so far, to hold Mohammed bin Salman to account and to actually exact concessions from what it appears the CIA knows with high confidence. That he ordered this murder, this brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi. If he doesn't, it will be a slap in the face not only to our intelligence community, but also to democratic leaders around the world, just as autocrats and strongmen, including people like Putin, will be cheering from the sidelines if those two embrace and are all smiles, and there's no talk of significant, tremendous repercussions for what the Saudi Crown Prince appears to have done.
So far, there has been no talk of repercussions from the president, at least. Congress certainly feels differently. Ned Price, Ned, thank you so much.
Thanks, Katie.
And if you, yes, you, have dreamed about traveling to space but don't have what it takes, the right stuff to become an astronaut, hold on tight. We've got one more thing in just a moment.
George woke up in pain, but he has plans today. So he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. All day strong.
Brighten your holidays with a Lightkeeper Pro. The Lightkeeper Pro fixes light sets fast and easy. Indoor lights. Outdoor lights. Pre-lit Christmas trees. Don't throw your decorations away. Just pull the quick fix trigger to repair the #1 cause of light set failure. It fixes net lights, icicle lights. There's an audible voltage detector and more. Lightkeeper Pro and LED Keeper, available in stores now.
I'm Jonathan Greencutter, CEO of Plexiderm. People often ask me if our product really works. I can't blame you for being skeptical. It was hard for me to believe until I saw my brother-in-law's under-eye bags cosmetically shrink from view in minutes. If you visit Plexiderm.com, you'll see real people cosmetically shrinking their under-eye bags and wrinkles from view in minutes.
Hi guys, my name is Sandy Marinesi. I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. One of the #1 question that I always get in my chair is, can you make me look younger? We had a few people that we applied it to, and some of them at first I was like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work. And I was so impressed how fast, efficient, and how well it really worked. Now I could really say to people, yes, I can make you look younger.
Once applied, your skin tightens and firms, rapidly reducing the appearance of under-eye bags and wrinkles in minutes. Get up to 50% off the normal retail price, plus get free shipping. Visit Plexiderm.com or call the number on your screen.
TrueCar is great for finding new cars. You're smart, you already knew that. It's also great for finding the perfect used car. You'll see what a fair price is, and you can connect with a TrueCar certified dealer. Now you're even smarter. This is TrueCar.
I love Ebates. I do quite a bit of holiday shopping, and I use Ebates for all of it. Ebates is a website with thousands of stores that I shop through, and they pay me to shop. Not only do I get all my holiday shopping done in a short amount of time, I get money back for doing so. There's no hassles, no gimmicks, nothing.
Ebates is where it pays to shop online, literally.
Sign up for free, shop at your favorite stores, get paid. Join today and get a $10 bonus at ebates.com.
Your new Toyota now at the Black Friday sales event at Fremont Toyota. We have the Toyota you're looking for. The red-hot Toyota RAV4, the gas-saving Toyota Prius, and certified used Toyotas. Start here at FremontToyota.com.
You think you found a great deal on a new car, but did they tell you you have to finance it with them? And the car you actually want costs more. Don't forget about those extra costs. At Normandy Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat, the buying experience is completely transparent. We'll show you the paperwork so everything is clear. And during the Black Friday sales event, drive a 2019 Jeep Cherokee Altitude for just $22,999. Go to Normandin.com or stop by Normandin Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat. The difference is clear.
Save time, save money. Just go to FremontToyota.com. Pick out your vehicle, fill in the blanks, set your appointment, and we'll have you and your new Toyota in just 90 minutes. Start here at FremontToyota.com. Just 90 minutes.
One more thing before we go. According to the Washington Post, NASA is thinking about getting into the space for profit game, selling civilians like you and me flights to the final frontier. If NASA goes through with it, they join Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk, who've been working on civilian space travel for years. And it would be a huge shift for the agency, which is known to usually play it by the book. In fact, there's not been a civilian on board a NASA mission since the Challenger explosion in 1986. And this is not just rumor or speculation. This could actually happen. Proposals for civilian shuttles have already been approved by NASA's advisory subcommittee. But it still has to pass the full committee and then be approved by NASA's administrator. While you do not have to be an astronaut to get on board, you do need to be very rich. I mean really rich. Richie rich rich. Flights to the space station are expected to cost millions of dollars. I'm looking at you, Mike Bloomberg, Taylor Swift, Judge Judy, that guy who won the Mega Millions a few weeks ago. You guys could go. I would go. Those millions could help boost NASA's revenue and also help the space station stay afloat financially. The White House plans to end direct funding to the ISS by 2025, turning it over to a commercial entity instead. Ali Velshi could go into our boss's office and say, I need a massive raise. Do you think they'll say yes so I can get on a space flight?
I think it's very cool.
I think it's super cool.
And not just that it is cool, the idea that people think it's cool is actually important, because spending on these kinds of things is only relevant. There are a lot of people who say, hey, that's irrelevant stuff, we shouldn't be thinking about that. But when we think about space, it leads to a whole lot of innovations and inventions that actually make life a lot better. A lot of the people in the world who have devoted themselves to inventing some of the neatest things in the world are oriented around space, because it's a frontier that's bigger than what we normally think about.
And imagine the Instagram.
Imagine the Instagram, that's the other point.
I like your stuff is better.
No,
Allie Velshi,
it's all good.
enjoy your
I
hour.
can imagine being able to talk about all that kind of interesting stuff as opposed to what we're about to do, which is sort of fact check lies. And
Honestly, it'd be so much more fun to talk about space for the hour.
That's right. That's right. I remember one day we made the decision to follow the launch of that SpaceX rocket instead of running the daily press briefing at the White House, and it was
a good
choice, I will say. Are you back again?
No, I'm done.
Because I feel like you've been on TV every other hour.
I know you really have been. I'm done after this, and if you let me go now, I can leave.
You can get out of here right now. Just can't cross in front of that camera, so you got to wait till I start talking and some pictures come on TV, because you're trapped in the studio until I do so. Have a great afternoon, Katie. Thank you.
Bye, Allie.
Good afternoon. I'm Allie Velshi. Breaking news on this Black Friday: another possible plea deal in the Mueller investigation, and this one sheds a lot of light on where the investigation is headed next. This latest case involves this guy on the left. His name is Jerome Corsi. Corsi has deep ties to the right-wing world and is known for his conspiracy theories and his work for InfoWars. Mueller's team is interested in Corsi because of his association with Roger Stone, who you probably do know. He's a longtime advisor to Trump and his campaign, and they want to know what the two men knew about WikiLeaks and those hacked emails during the 2016 presidential campaign. Stone talked about that and Corsi just last week.
I think poor Jerry Corsi has been squeezed now relentlessly to bear false witness against me, or perhaps false witness against me and the president, and he refuses to do so. So they're threatening to indict him because he won't compose. He won't take their composition. You know, as for me, I intend to fight, but it's debilitating.
We're going to unpack that a little bit. Of course, he's been confirmed to NBC News that he's in talks with the special counsel about a plea deal. Now, if you're counting at home, here's what the special counsel has already gotten. 32 indictments, 6 guilty pleas, 1 conviction, 4 people jailed or imprisoned, and 3 sentenced. Joining me now is the person who helped break this story for NBC, our senior investigative producer, Anna Schechter. Also joining me, MSNBC's legal analyst, Danny Savalas, both of whom have come back in today to help us cover this important story. Most people were not expecting news like this to break on Black Friday. I should note that Jay Sekulow, the president's outside counsel, has declined to comment on this news. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, has not responded to NBC News requests for comment. So, Anna, let's start with you. A week ago, 10 days ago, you were supposed to be interviewing Jerome Corsi right here at 30 Rock, and then he suddenly canceled on you and said, no, his lawyer told him he's not talking to the media anymore.
Yeah, and he was probably already in plea negotiations at the time, and he had told me he was expecting to be indicted on perjury. So they must have caught him in some kind of a lie. They were going through a binder 6 to 8 inches thick of all of his communications. He told me at one point they threw the binder at him, so he got to see it.
Right.
And so one of his statements, he says, must have contradicted what was in the binder, and it all goes back to WikiLeaks. If he had a connection to WikiLeaks. And what he says is that the investigators were trying to push him into a narrative to say something that he just couldn't say. So we have no idea if that's true or not. He has major credibility issues, as do lots of characters.
And just remind us as to why.
Well, he is the original birther theorist. He created this conspiracy theory about Barack Obama not being born in the United States. And these kinds of arguments really do damage to our democracy. And Donald Trump picked that argument up and hammered it over and over for a year in 2011 and 2012. He loved that story, that fake story.
He said he was sending investigators all over the course. He's written a book about this.
He's written an entire book about it. He's written other books about other conspiracies, one involving John Kerry. So he calls himself an investigative journalist. He goes after Democrats. And in the summer and fall of 2016, he was doing opposition research on Democrats, including John Podesta, leading up to the presidential election.
Danny, there's so many questions I have for you, but the first of which is that Anna had told me that investigators, these Mueller investigators, you know, they get their hands on these guys' texts and they go through them. What do you do when the guy's a conspiracy theorist birther? He writes for InfoWars. He's written an entire book on Barack Obama not being born in the United States. How do investigators build a case when there's all of this nonsense all over the place? This is like a liar truth teller's problem.
Right. Jerry Corsi has said he expects to be indicted for false statements. That's Section 1001. That means that somebody sits down with investigators ordinarily. It need not be sworn testimony. And they make a materially false statement. Now, what jumps out at me as very significant is that the statement, the false statement, must be material. It can't just be, as Trump, to paraphrase President Trump, whether it was raining or not raining. That's not material.
I see.
So to be indicted...
Because he calls it a perjury. He's calling it a perjury trap. But it would have to be about something that matters, not just that I got you to lie about something.
Exactly. Or that maybe you misremembered something that was inconsequential.
Right.
And believe me, before prosecutors are going to charge someone with false statements, they're going to be prepared to prove that this was not just a case of faulty memory or a case of just missing some inconsequential fact.
Got it.
It's going to be a material statement, which has a bit of irony because meanwhile, Roger Stone is saying they're making this guy give false statements against me. So you have the government supposedly saying he made false statements. Now Roger Stone saying, of course, he's going to make false statements. It's as if he can't be trusted on either side.
It's like liars and truth tellers. Let me just go back sort of 5,000 feet on this, Anna. Why do we care about Jerome Corsi? In the grand scheme of this Mueller investigation, what link could this provide?
This could provide a back channel to WikiLeaks, and that's really what they're looking at. So Mueller's investigators were looking at communications. It seemed that Corsi did have some advanced knowledge that John Podesta's emails were going to be made public. That's why this is so important, because in October, that October surprise, that was hugely damaging to Hillary Clinton's campaign. October 5th, every day they were just rolling out more and more emails, each one more damaging.
And listen to what Donald Trump has said about WikiLeaks. This is just a small sampling.
This just came out. WikiLeaks! I love WikiLeaks.
Well, I love reading those WikiLeaks.
They've got to start talking about WikiLeaks.
The wonder of WikiLeaks.
Oh, we love WikiLeaks. Boy, they have really... WikiLeaks. They have revealed a lot. WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks. That came out on WikiLeaks. This WikiLeaks stuff is unbelievable. It tells you the inner heart. You got to read it.
That was all prior to the election in 2016. That was mostly October of 2016. So they're trying to figure this. I mean, it seems funny to watch it, but what they're trying to find out, and Danny, tell me if it's relevant or not. The president talked about WikiLeaks. He said we're going to have surprises. He said we're going to get information. He seemed to know things about WikiLeaks that you or I wouldn't know about WikiLeaks.
Let me give you a hypothetical that might explain why Jerry Corsi expects to be indicted. He sits down with federal investigators, and suppose they ask him, how did you know about this WikiLeaks data dump? And he says, for example, hypothetically, to avoid getting in trouble, oh, I think I read it on the internet somewhere. But that may work at a cocktail party. But federal investigators follow up with additional questions if they don't like the direction that they think a witness is going in. You can't fudge the truth with federal investigators because for the most part, they've done a ton of research before they sit down with a witness. And that's the kind of white lie that would be anything but a white lie to federal prosecutors under Section 1001, which is the genesis of that information. If Corsi is the origin of the information about WikiLeaks, and that somehow made it through intermediaries, be it Stone or whoever else, to Trump, then you may have that Russian connection. Maybe. But we still don't know until we find out what exactly Corsi is in trouble for, if anything.
So it's a link in a chain. Roger Stone is also a link in that chain. He's actually the last link before it gets to Donald Trump, possibly. What's he said about this? I know he said that he thinks that they're making Corsi lie, but what else has he said?
Well, he's just put out a statement today, and he says that he doesn't know about Dr. Corsi. To the best of my recollection, there was not one publication, mainstream or otherwise, that ever mentioned John Podesta's email prior to their posting by WikiLeaks. As I told you, the Washington Post, if Dr. Corsi knew that John Podesta's emails had been obtained by anyone, he goes on, and would be published, he never shared this information with me, nor did he give me any such documents.
All right, this is an interesting development. It is complicated. I appreciate the two of you coming back to help us understand. Thanks very much, and go back and enjoy the rest of your Good Friday if you can. There's some great deals out there. NBC senior investigative producer Anna Schechter and Danny Savalos, MSNBC legal analyst. All right, coming up, the Trump administration releases a dire report about the devastating effects of climate change on health and human safety. Experts say officials are trying to bury the truth by releasing the report today, Black Friday, when millions of Americans are preoccupied. Stay with us. I've got the findings. Coming up next, you're watching MSNBC.
Your insurance rates skyrocket after a scratch so small you could fix it with a pen. How about using that pen to sign up for new insurance instead?
For drivers with accident forgiveness, Liberty Mutual won't raise their rates because of their first accident.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Dear OxyClean, I live on a farm with my hardworking husband, 2 active kids, lots of horses, and 2 dogs. Which means I always have a pile of dirty laundry. Sweaty, stinky laundry. So when I discovered OxyClean with odor blasters, I was excited to give it a try. I just add a scoop to my laundry, and guess what? There was no odor. It was gone. Thanks, OxyClean, for making life a lot less smelly.
OxyClean with odor blasters eliminates tough odors.
At Wayfair.com, we think that when the big stuff ships free, it's just better.
Cover better, crunch better, rock roll better, dream better. Yeah, better!
Oh, Wayfair has free shipping. Game changer.
Fast better, free better, everything's better.
With free shipping on orders over $49, shop better at Wayfair.com.
Wayfair, you've got just what I need.
I'm really into this car, but how do I know if I'm getting a good deal? I tell TrueCar my zip and which car I want, and TrueCar shows the range of prices people in my area actually paid for the same car, so I know if I'm getting a great price. This is how car buying was always meant to be. This is TrueCar.
It's a funny thing about the future. You don't wake up surrounded by jetpacks and robot dogs. The real future kind of sneaks up on you, until one day you find yourself plugging in your SUV and getting the equivalent of 74 miles per gallon. The 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Save up to $5,836 in year-end tax credits. The world's best-selling plug-in hybrid SUV. Lease now for $289 a month for 36 months or 0% APR for 60 months.
Sometimes ideas, like the Oakland Zoo's California Trail Expansion Project, are so groundbreaking, they take a quarter of a century to surface. That's why at Fremont Bank, we ensure our clients have the resources they need when they need them most. Because one of the perks of working with a local partner is we ensure every groundbreaking idea turns into a time-to-break actual ground idea. This is Andy Masterakis, CEO of Fremont Bank. For more partnerships and action stories, visit fremontbank.com.
This isn't just any moving day. This is moving day with the best in-home Wi-Fi experience and millions of Wi-Fi hotspots to help you stay connected. And this is moving day with reliable service appointments in a 2-hour window, so you're up and running in no time.
Show me decorating shows.
This is staying connected with Xfinity to make moving simple, easy, awesome.
Stay connected while you move with the best Wi-Fi experience in 2-hour appointment windows. Click, call, or visit a store today.
We live in the mayhem of the Trump era.
There is chaos in the building behind you.
What we do at 4 o'clock is try to cut right to the bone of what we're seeing in Washington that day. How does no one quit when the president is constantly tweeting smears about law enforcement?
One word, power.
We also laugh at that which is totally ridiculous. Very eager to hear your reaction.
Well, I don't even know where to start.
Go! We all the time you need.
Deadline White House with Nicole Wallace. Weekdays at 4 on MSNBC.
When most Americans are tucking into turkey leftovers and waiting in line for Black Friday sales, the government has released a huge report on the impact of climate change, and the findings are dire, not just for our health and our environment, the way you'd expect it to be, but also for the economy. The scientific report warns that the damage from climate change will reduce the size of the American economy by 10% by the end of the century. Annual losses, this is a quote, annual losses in some economic sectors are projected to reach hundreds of billions of dollars by the end of the century, more than the current gross domestic product of many U.S. states. I'm joined by NBC's Tom Costello. I know, Tom, that you haven't had a chance to read through 1,600 pages of the report, but what stands out to you as you start to go through it?
This was all compiled by 13 federal agencies. It's required by law, so it's not like the Trump administration ordered this up. They are by law required to produce this every 4 years. They say that there is clear and compelling evidence that the temperature is rising fast and that humans are responsible for it. The real-time evidence that the scientists point to include the devastating fires in California and the Smoky Mountains, the horrific hurricanes and tsunamis we've seen. Scientists are pointing to more frequent and intense extreme weather that will, they say, damage the health of the environment, human health, and the infrastructure. Agricultural productivity and fisheries could be hit very, very hard. They argue this is primarily a man-made catastrophe caused by greenhouse gases, rising oceans, melting ice, erosion, all of the effects. And they expect cold weather-related deaths to decrease, heat-related deaths to increase, everything from drought to insect-causing diseases like Lyme disease, Zika, West Nile, all of that laid out. But I would make this point, I know you want to go there, this report really contradicts President Trump's belief on global climate change. He has argued that it's a hoax. He's argued it's a hoax. He's called for more coal and oil and gas production. These scientists say it is clear and compelling evidence that this is a real emergency.
Yeah, I don't get into the politics of whether people call it climate change or global warming. The reason climate change is clearer is because Donald Trump tweeted the other day about global warming. It's really cold weather. He said brutal and extended cold blast could shatter all records. Whatever happened to global warming? The danger, of course, is when the President of the United States says that, people start to believe that if it's not just hot, then there's no global warming. Global warming gives us extremes on all sides and, as you said, health effects.
Voila, that's exactly the point I was going to make. I've talked to scientists about this for 20 years, and I'd say, how could we have such a cold, specific period of weeks in December? And they will make the point, we generally don't call it global warming as much as we call it climate change, because yes, there is that